This is Matthew Cratter from Bitcoin University, and today I wanted to talk about BlackRock giving its blessing to Bitcoin and how really bullish this is. I think a lot of people are really still underestimating this. So for those of you who haven't been following the news, the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF has been proposed to the SEC. They've filed an application, but has not yet been officially approved. In this video, I'm going to be calling it an ETF. I know it's technically a trust. That's something we're going to discuss in a later video, but it's quite different from GBTC in that the units can be created and redeemed daily. So it will not trade at a premium or discount as some trusts like the GBTC trust have been. So I'll be calling it a Bitcoin ETF, but just be aware that I know that it's technically a trust. Now, I think that this application with the SEC will almost certainly be approved by the SEC within the next 45 to 240 days. The timeline looks something like that, and we'll see what happens. But according to Eric Balchunas, BlackRock's record of getting ETFs approved by the SEC is 575 to 1. And as he says, that's another reason this is so big. They don't play around. They submit these applications when they know that the regulatory environment is probably going to be very friendly to it, and especially to them as such a big player in the space. So this video is a bit premature. This ETF has not yet been approved, but I think it's very important to skate to where the puck is headed, not to where it has been. So this video will discuss some really positive things about BlackRock entering the space in such a big way. And then in a subsequent video, I will cover ways in which a BlackRock Bitcoin ETF could become an attack vector down the line in many years from now, as well as other negative aspects about BlackRock entering the space. These things are never black and white. So I'll make these videos. You could watch the pros videos and the cons videos and then make up your own mind about it. But please don't think that I'm in any way a fan of BlackRock. I can already see the YouTube comments saying Bitcoin Maxi is just interested in number go up and isn't worried about BlackRock or something like that. I'll say outright, BlackRock is a giant greasy tentacle of the Fed and the US fiat system. I have no illusions about them. However, Bitcoin is for enemies. It's for our enemies as well as for our friends. And you don't achieve Bitcoin global adoption without at least some adoption happening at the institutional level. And this is where BlackRock is going to be so helpful if their application is approved. So what does this new ETF mean for Bitcoin? Point number one is the really obvious point. Some really, really huge capital flows into Bitcoin. Bitcoin to the moon. It's not something I normally talk a lot about on this channel, but it is a fact, I believe, that if this is approved, tens and tens of billions of dollars are going to flow into this Bitcoin ETF from institutional players, retirement accounts, individual retirement accounts, and due to recommendations by mainstream financial advisors. So this is really quite huge, especially when you combine this with the coming halving that's going to take place somewhere around April or May of next year, 2024. So I think this means that we could easily see new all-time highs for Bitcoin in the coming 12 months. We hodlers, we hardcore Bitcoiners are not going to be selling to BlackRock. There's not going to be that much supply out there. And so when the offers in a order book or a limit order book disappear, what you can have is you can have a price go up quite a bit if there are no sellers left, even if there's not a huge amount of buyers. But in this case, I think we will see a huge amount of buying coming through these capital flows coming into the ETF, and then BlackRock will be purchasing Bitcoin itself, the spot Bitcoin, to back this ETF, and that will be custodied at Coinbase custody. So I think we could easily see new all-time highs trading above 69,000 in the coming 12 months. Again, don't accuse me of being a number go up maxi. Bitcoin's price is the one thing that I discuss probably the least on this channel. Bitcoin is freedom tech. That's what's most important about it. However, in order for Bitcoin to succeed, we do need to see its purchasing power continue to increase, as well as its market cap, which will then allow new larger groups to enter Bitcoin, like nation states and central banks, which is really where this is headed. If you're finding this video helpful so far, I just ask you to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a question or comment as well. So that's point one, huge capital inflows into Bitcoin coming whenever this is approved and starts trading, which is sometime in the next 45 to 240 days. Point number two, Bitcoin will not be banned in the US anytime soon. BlackRock effectively endorsing Bitcoin by taking it seriously enough to create an ETF for it is a really big deal, since BlackRock is in bed with the US government. They're really smart about these things. Issuing a Bitcoin ETF is a really good sign that BlackRock doesn't believe that Bitcoin will be banned in the US anytime soon. I never thought it would be. We've been talking about this for years, but this does add an official stamp of approval to Bitcoin from the biggest money manager in the US. So if you have a crazy uncle who still thinks that Bitcoin is a scam or a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme, now you can ask your uncle if he thinks he's actually smarter than BlackRock. BlackRock adds this nice normie stamp of approval to Bitcoin. It's not something that you and I ever needed to see to invest, but lots of people do need to see this, especially people like financial advisors. Now, of course, you can argue that BlackRock has issued a lot of junk over the years, but that's not what matters here. What matters is the perception that Bitcoin is finally a legitimate mainstream investment that can be recommended by financial advisors. No one ever got fired for recommending a BlackRock ETF, as they say. So that's point number 2. Point number 3, BlackRock entering the space now provides cover and legitimacy to corporations as well, not just individuals and other institutional investors, but corporations that want to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. So for years, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy have been the prescient voices in the wilderness on this one, but really no other large corporations have followed. Shame on Elon. He did buy some Bitcoin for Tesla and then sold off something like 75% of it, if I remember correctly. But really, MicroStrategy has been the big leader and pioneer in this space. But now you can expect other corporations like the FANG stocks, for example. This is a really natural fit for tech companies, obviously. You can expect them to start adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet now that it's been implicitly blessed by BlackRock. Finally, point number 4, and we all know that Larry Fink and BlackRock have been the faces of ESG for the past few years. We see articles like this all the time. BlackRock CEO stands firm on ESG investing. One of my listeners, Kevalan1042, had a really good point here. Isn't BlackRock the champion of all things ESG? Does that mean they might stop the spin against BTC? I think this is a really good point that I hadn't thought of before. So in the popular conception, Bitcoin wastes energy, it wastes electricity, it's boiling the oceans, all this stuff. This is nonsense, of course, and I've refuted this sort of Bitcoin ESG FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, in one video after another. I'll link to this playlist in which I discuss it from many different angles. I'll list this in the description notes below. But now people don't have to trust Bitcoiners like me on this one, because by even applying for a Bitcoin ETF, BlackRock is giving its implicit ESG approval to Bitcoin. So this will not only help the anxiety of all those people who worry about things like this, and I'll say I'm not one of them, but BlackRock could actually become an ally and advocate for Bitcoin and defend it against future attacks like the failed Biden administration attack, which tried but failed to apply an unfair electricity tax that singled out Bitcoin miners but didn't seem to care about the equal amount of energy usage by data centers, people who play video games, people who watch cat videos online, etc. It's a very bad idea to politicize electricity, as the Biden administration tried to do. But if BlackRock is buying Bitcoin, it must be ESG now, of course. And it actually always has been, as we know. Bitcoin is actually good for the environment, and that's the E in ESG. When it comes to the S and G in ESG, the social and governance parts of ESG, Bitcoin is actually much more ESG friendly, again, if you care about these things, than central bankers and fiat money. What I care about is that Bitcoin is good for the world. I'm not trying to fit it into certain labels like ESG, but there are a lot of people and there's a lot of capital, as I said, that cares about these things. Bitcoin is much more ESG friendly than central bankers and the traditional fiat system, which is quite broken. By contrast, Bitcoin is fair and neutral money for 8 billion people. No one gets to stand close to the money printer as they do in fiat systems. Fiat governance is completely broken. Ruled by central bankers and Wall Street is a really terrible way to run things. Central bankers have increased wealth inequality and destroyed the social fabric with their money printers and inflation. So I think this is a really good thing, and I think it is a fair thing to say that Bitcoin is ESG friendly. Now, in a subsequent video, I'll cover possible downsides to BlackRock buying Bitcoin and ways that they could attempt to attack the protocol in the future, so stay tuned for that. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video, and let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.